Hey everyone, welcome to my TikTok talk. My name is Becca and I am going to be talking about discovering TikTok today. I have lots to get through, so let's get straight into it. Okay, first of all, a couple of little things about me. I am a social media consultant for digital agency Based Creative. I am an events coordinator at Sharing Social London, a regular social media meetup, a podcast co-host for the Appaholics podcast. I'm obsessed with apps, so if you've got any recommendations, let me know. A guinea pig enthusiast. I have two, Piggles and Wiggles. And finally, most importantly for today, I am a TikTok addict. Now, I know what you're thinking, and lots of people react this way. They're like, TikTok, really? Are you sure? How can that be valuable for my business? Isn't it just a load of kids scrolling through funny dances during lockdown? No. There's some of that, but there is so much more. So I'm going to start with a quick story about how I got well and truly addicted to TikTok. So it was about this time last year. I finally thought, okay, it's time to download the app. I need to see what it's all about. Is this here to stay? I think it might be. I need to know what's going on and what's the sitch, basically. And then this happened. So I became well and truly addicted. I had a go at creating some little funny TikToks, some cute ones, some aesthetic ones, and now most of my TikTok content is kind of like what I'm doing today, telling people about social media and tips. So from there, and since then, I've learnt a lot about paid TikTok advertising, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Some of the specific points I'll be covering is what is TikTok, who's on the platform, what types of content works best, how to set up a campaign, some creative tips, some case studies, and some final tips and tricks. So let's dive in. First of all, what is TikTok? What's it all about? Most of the videos on the platform are between 15 and 60 seconds long. Very short. All the content on this platform is very fast paced, and you really need to think about how to get hold of your audience in a shorter time as possible, because otherwise they're just going to scroll past and nobody's going to look at your content. Something that TikTok prides itself on is that it's real people, real videos. I like to compare TikTok to Instagram. Instagram, especially if we look at just a regular image post on the platform, often look very polished, filters. It's this warped sense of reality. Everything has to be perfect. Nobody ever has any clutter and everyone is just, perfect all the time. TikTok is not like that, and they pride themselves on it. On TikTok, you're going to see people in their kitchen at home, in their pajamas, It sets itself apart from other apps in this way, and this is also why you need to really be careful with what types of paid content you're going to be using. So a quick overview of the interface on the app. Something to be aware of is what's happening at the top, the side, and the bottom of the screen. At the bottom, you've got the navigation bar, so getting to your home feed, your discovery page, when you're going to create new TikToks, messages, and your profile. So that's kind of standard, you expect that to be there. Then you've got your caption, and this is where call to action buttons appear within the app too. And then up the side, you've got your share buttons. So it's really important that you consider what's happening in your video content and where that will show up, because you don't want an important label or the main focus of the video to be underneath the caption, hidden. You don't want that. It's also worth noting as well, you shouldn't have things right at the top of your video either, because this is where you've got two tabs. Your following tab, which is where everyone who follows content will appear, and your For You tab, where the algorithm is going to push video content that it thinks you'll enjoy. So basically, long story short, keep your content in the centre where it's guaranteed to be seen and it's not going to be covered up by anything else. How does TikTok work? I found this diagram made by Veed, which does a really good job of talking about how the algorithm works, and it's really important that you understand this before running any paid content. So first of all, you post a video. This is analysed by TikTok, and they pick out the type of audience that they think is going to resonate well. So this is going to depend on the content of the video, if it's got labels, the content of those labels, your caption, what you're talking about. All of those things are going to be considered, and it's going to get pushed to a small group to start with. Depending on the performance within this small group, if people engage, if people are watching it for the full length of time, maybe they're even watching it more than once, if they're sharing it with their friends, this is going to be a positive indicator to TikTok and tell them, okay, this content is good, we're going to continue to push it to people who are similar to this first group. If your content doesn't perform well, doesn't get many likes, doesn't get people commenting, and just kind of falls flat, then you'll probably notice that any views that you've been gaining on that content will just trail off and stop, because TikTok will stop pushing your content. The reason this is important is because it ties into people on TikTok having that short attention span. People are very, very quick to just scroll past if it doesn't get their attention, and they'll do this with organic content as well. So with your paid content, you need to be hyper aware of how you can get people to keep watching before they just scroll away, never to return. So let's talk about who is using the platform. The primary audience on TikTok is Generation Z, people between the ages of 16 and 24. However, there are more people on the platform. Please don't limit yourself and think, oh well, my audience is 25 to 35, there's no point. There honestly is, especially with what's happened this year, people being at home more often. Lockdown has meant that for a lot of people, TikTok has turned into a main source of entertainment. It's probably quite alarming how long I've spent on the app this year. What it means for us advertisers is that there's more of an opportunity there to reach our audiences through this platform. So just a look at the global landscape. There are 800 million global active users, and over 6 million of those are active in the UK every month. Something I want to draw your attention to is how long those people are spending on the app each day. It's 52 minutes per day. That's quite a long time. So despite the fact that people will be scrolling quite quickly through content, that's a good opportunity for you to, if you get the right content, get in front of the people that you want to access. I think that's a staggering amount of time, especially when you consider all the other things that are screaming for our attention throughout the day. People are spending nearly an hour on the app. So, next, what kinds of content perform well and what should you be putting on TikTok? So, it's not just about funny dances. You can have a piece of content for every type of niche on TikTok. If you can think of it, it's going to exist, and if it doesn't, then you can be the pioneer of that niche. So some of my favourite types of content and things that work really well are story times, short tutorials, educational pieces of content, and mini vlogs. They're some of the best ones, but the possibilities are really endless. So I would look at who your audience is, what kind of content they're going to be resonating with and enjoying organically, and perhaps even what content are they creating themselves. How can you transform that content into something that's going to work really, really well with your audience? Now it's time to talk about how brands are using TikTok. So let's talk about setting up your campaign. So when you start a campaign on TikTok, first thing you need to do is choose your objective. So there are 3 pillars here that you can consider. You've got awareness, consideration, and conversion. Within these, you can look at reach, traffic, app installs, video views, conversions. You've got a lot of options there. So let's dive in with awareness. So these types of ads are great if you need to raise awareness with your brand, if you want to start building trust between you and your audience, and you want to get your ads seen by the most number of people. When you then move into consideration, this is great if you've got somewhere specific you want to lead your users to. So if that's a particular landing page, a blog post, are you trying to get people to the App Store to download your app, or are you just trying to increase the video views? So keep going on about it, but the amount of time people are watching ads on TikTok is really important. And if you can encourage people and get people past that barrier to watch longer, then your ads are going to perform better, be seen as higher quality, and you're going to get better results. So just to give you some insight, I would normally optimize TikTok ads so that they're running and I'm getting the content in that I need between 2 and 6 seconds. After that 6-second mark, I would expect a huge drop off. So make sure that you're getting as much as possible within that first chunk. Finally, conversion ads. So remember, and I'm sure you're doing this already with other ads you're running for different platforms, set up your pixel so you can track these properly. But this part of the ad is great if you've got people who have got the user intent, they're ready to buy or use your product or service. So then in your campaign, you want to set up your budget. So this is quite familiar to other platforms. Give your campaign a name. You can choose to do an A/B test if you want, and then you set your lifetime or daily budget. Something to note if you're thinking about running ads is that you need to spend a minimum of £50 first of all. Some notes, best practices about budgets. TikTok recommends using a daily budget at ad group level. This basically gives you a little bit more control and means that you can quickly react to how your ads are performing. It's really important to let the learning phase of ads work their magic. Trust the process, let things run before you make any sudden changes. And when you do make changes, always leave 2 days to let the campaign settle, see what's happening, and then evaluate and make your decision from there. So here you can narrow down your audiences, and there's kind of 2 approaches. One is narrow audiences. So this is where you'll set quite specific criteria and you'll ask TikTok to find people within that they think is going to resonate with your content. Or you can do broad targeting. So this is where TikTok will find the best people without any predefined parameters. And it helps you identify people that you perhaps might not have considered. I think something to note about TikTok is people can follow such a varied amount of creators and different content types that it could be really hard to put them into one kind of category. Just because somebody watches cooking videos doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily resonate with cooking paid content. So I would actually keep things fairly broad while you're starting your ads. Then you can look at audience behaviour. So this is particularly interesting when you think about a user's recent in-app behaviour, and can really help if you need to give your campaign a boost in effectiveness. So an example here would be you can target people who have recently expressed like the purchase intent for your product or in your vertical, and this can help give your campaign that little extra boost. Now let's talk about creatives, which is one of my favourite parts. So keep your content high resolution, make sure it's the right size. You can have it looking organic, but just make sure it's not pixelated. Think about using high contrast colours, so whether this is in the actual colours of your video itself, or if you're using brand colours in your labels or call to actions that you're putting over the top of the video, make them stand out as much as you can and stay in the safe zone. So this is what I created a TikTok earlier on in the summer. And again, talking about making sure you're avoiding those buttons and captions down the side. The number of times I have seen people have a call to action label and then it gets hidden under the caption, or they're pointing at something which is actually off screen a little bit or hidden behind the buttons. You'd think it would be like, oh yeah, of course I won't do that. Just make sure when you run the ads, everything is looking as you've intended and nothing is hidden up. Some other pointers I want to talk about is pattern interrupt. So again, it's hooking those people in. What can you do that's going to make people go, oh, and stop and watch for a few more seconds? Not only should you be keeping your ads looking as organic as possible, but do something that they don't expect or funny. Another thing to think about with your creative, especially when you are editing your final cut, is to think about a seamless loop. This is a really effective way of increasing the watch time on your ads and getting people to watch it more than once as well. If you take your video and you make it so that when it ends you can't tell when it started again, so you create that loop, and then you cut it at different points so that people see, say, the end of the video first, or they see the middle first, and then they're like, hold on, have I missed something? And then they watch the whole thing, and then they get your whole message and they see the beginning. And that's a really, really clever way of boosting your content and getting higher engagement rates and getting people to watch longer. Finally, let's talk about copy. So it's actually less important than you might think. Less is more. Don't feel like you need to write everything in the caption. Let your video content do the talking. And in the content that you write, just remember to include a call to action and then to have between 12 and 100 characters. Now let's talk about ad types. So TikTok says that they are connecting the brands today with the consumers of tomorrow, and they do this through 5 main types of ads. First one, an in-feed ad. So this is the most regular ad that you will see as you scroll through your feed. They pop up between other pieces of organic content, and it's probably where you'll start with your campaigns. So this is a example of a in-feed ad that was run by KFC at the end of the first lockdown. They wanted to tell their audience, hey, we're open, you can deliver again. They did this by starting the frame on an organic piece of user-generated content, so it looked just like any other content you'd be scrolling through. And then in comes the branding, in comes the more polished shot of the chicken, then you see the brand, and then a very clear call to action at the end with that big red block of colour as well to catch your attention and say, hey, pick up the phone, go on your app and order KFC. This type of ad performs really, really well. And so KFC were able to get over 3.4 million impressions. They had an engagement rate of 10.54% and a click-through rate of 1.87%. So that's really, really, really powerful. And I've got a benchmark here that you should be aiming towards if you're using this type of ad. So you should be aiming towards a 5% average engagement rate and a 1 to 3% average click-through rate on these types of ads. So this is going to help you benchmark yourself and see if you're doing well, how much you need to tweak. And I think quite often as well, it's easier to see what you need to tweak. Next up, brand takeover. So these ads appear before any user-generated content. So as soon as you open the app, bam, they're there. They're usually full sound, they're full screen. All of the things I've been talking about at the edges of the screen are missing for the first 3 seconds. They're also exclusive to their category. So users don't see more than one brand takeover per day. So it means you've got very little competition, but it is very, very, very expensive. So if you have the budget and you're working for a big brand, this is going to be something that you can use. Next up is a top view ad. So these build on that brand takeover format. They're actually what appears as you're already scrolling through the feed. This is an example from lastminute.com shown back in February when we were maybe thinking about going on holiday a bit more than we are now. They ran a top view ad for just 24 hours and then followed up with in-feed ads. So this is like you want to make a big impact and then follow up and keep that brand awareness going. And they were able to achieve an 18% click-through rate. But something that I thought was really interesting with this campaign is despite how successful it was, the average watch time for this content was only 3.18 seconds. Not long at all. So that just shows you that even with big budgets, people aren't going to watch longer. So keep that in mind when running your campaigns. Some benchmarks for this type of ad is a 7 to 10% average click-through rate. So they can be really, really effective. Next up, branded hashtag challenge. So if you go in TikTok, you'll see these very often. They pop up in the discovery page. You'll see lots of your favourite influencers and your favourite creators joining in these hashtag challenges. They're set by brands and the aim is to increase virality. Next up, branded effect. So the best way to think about these is to think of like AR filters that you might have seen on Snapchat or Instagram, face filters, 3D objects, that kind of vibe. Here we've got one from Halls, the cough sweet people, and they actually had like a digital cough sweet that you could basically eat. Finally, I just want to run through some tips of how to optimize and test your content. First of all, make your videos vertical. Please don't try and adapt content from elsewhere and just make it fit. Plan your content specifically for TikTok, bear everything that we've talked about today in mind, and then you're going to have a much better outcome. Also, remember to keep it short and snappy. Don't drag on your video any longer than it needs to. Give your audience what's going to be valuable for them and give it to them quickly. I would recommend adding in fresh creatives to your ad campaign each week because things move quickly and you'll quickly be able to identify what's working, what's not, what can I change, and from there your ads are only going to get better. Keep your audience broad. Let the AI algorithm fine-tune your targeting. I think quite often we can be like, oh, I need to get really, really specific with my targeting. I don't want to have people that are irrelevant to my brands, and that all stands. However, with TikTok and the way it is and the kind of amount of variety that there is in the content that people are consuming, let TikTok do some of the work for you. So I have raced through this content super, super quickly. I hope all of it made sense, and please let me know if you have any questions. I am all ears, happy to help in any way I can. You can find me at beccasocial on all of the platforms, even TikTok. And please use the hashtag BrightonSEO, and thank you BrightonSEO for having me today. I really enjoyed it. So thanks everyone.